Hi guys, nice to see all of you here. As said, my name is Tymon Smektała, and I'm a lead designer at Techland. And I would like to see my presentation on the screen. Okay, there we go. I really would like to thank you for taking your time to spend this time with me. It's almost end of Digital Dragons, and I know it must have been exhausting for you. So I really appreciate it. Once again, thanks for coming here. I would especially like to thank some of my special guests, unexpected and giving me a little bit more pressure than I should feel, and that's my brother who sits over there. So, hi Radek, and also a lot of my Techland friends and a lot of my Techland folks. Thanks for being here. Because I respect all of your time, I will start quickly with explaining what this will all be about, so you can decide if you want to stay or leave. So it's a toolbox of a resourceful designer, and Toolbox is quite easy. It's a box where you have all of your tools. In case of game design, it's tools, rules, methods, techniques, whatever you use to do your job. And resourceful, that's something that actually maybe explains needs a little bit explaining. Someone asked me, resourceful, is there even a word like that? What does it mean? Maybe this should be effective instead. So actually, there is a word like that. It's resourceful. You can check it online. There are a couple of definitions. Every dictionary has one. So for example, from Wikipedia is having the ability to find quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties. There are a lot of them, of course. For me, it's being able to deliver whatever it is that you need to deliver and do it in the most optimal way. Do it with using as many resources as you need, but not more than that. And I think that's especially important for game designers. And if you would ask me why is it important for game designers, then I would say it's important for game designers because the team that they worked with. So first of all, there's this notion that game designers, they actually don't do much. They just sit at the desk, they create their documents, they send those documents to the team, and basically that's it. They have ideas, and they put those ideas on paper, and that's about it when it comes to their work. And that is kind of true, but it also isn't, because there's a lot of responsibility on game designers' shoulders, and that responsibility comes from the fact that every decision, every idea that you have, every decision that you make costs a lot, and it costs money, it costs resources, and it costs time. And when I mean time, I mean two kinds of time. One is company's time, project time, which is very important, and of course I respect this, but the other one is personal time of people involved in making the game, in the people that are on your team. And that's something that I have utmost respect for, because actually that time is the only resource on earth that you just cannot replenish. If that time is spent, it's gone forever. So each time when I have an idea, I want to test something, I ask, hey guys, how long will it take you to create that prototype, to make that idea happen? And I measure if I want to do this, or maybe there are some other ways to test whatever I want to test with the time that this will take for the people that are on my team. So because of that, I think designers, game designers should be very resourceful, should be responsible, should be effective, and should be smart about what they do. So I will talk about this. This will be basically a survival kit for game designers. So imagine I have a new job, or I start a new project. So you could ask me, what will I take with me to work on that project? What will I take to be a resourceful designer on that project? And I will tell you about some of those things. Who will say yay to this? Who will be excited about this? Who will benefit from this? I think students that want to work in the game industry. Also game designers of different experiences. This can be a game designer who has no experience at all, or maybe even someone who did a lot of games. Maybe there will be some tips and tricks that they will be able to take from me and use in their work. And of course, folks generally interested in game making, and I think all of you are. Who will not be that excited about this? So I think game directors, because they are the most experienced game designers here, and I'm saying this because I think my game director is also here, right? Pisa, is that you? I think it's him. Oh no, so it's not. Okay, but there's a guy that has a very similar cap, but he was supposed to be here. So if he would be here, then he wouldn't be that excited about this, because most of the things that I will tell you, I learned from him. Also, game design legends. If there is a Sid Meier or Shigeru Miyamoto here, you will not be excited about what I'm about to say. And to be honest, I stole some things from you. There will be some things that I have stolen from you, so please forgive me if you are here. And of course, if you're not interested in games, then of course feel free to stay, but maybe turn on your Facebook or whatever and do whatever you want. This will take about 30 minutes, so I think you'll survive. I have this tendency to speak too much and too fast, so if that happens, please throw something at me so I can get my senses together and get focused. So who am I? Once again, that's important because that will give you a glimpse of what kind of experience I have. So my name is Tymon Smektała. Currently, I'm a lead designer at Techland, which is a great honor for me. I spent more than 15 years in games industry, but actually that's kind of lying. That's not telling the whole truth, because most of that time I worked at CD Action magazine, which is, as you know, the biggest gaming mag in Poland. And I thought I know about games when I was working there, but of course I didn't. I started realizing what games are, how you make them, what it is that makes games, only when I joined Techland, which was about 3 years ago, almost 4. And during that time I worked on 2 projects, Dying Light, where I was hired as a producer. My business card said producer, but I was supposed to do a spokesperson job to present the game to the international media. But we have found out that there's a guy on our team who does this job way better than me. He's more natural, has better English, so basically he started doing this, but the only problem was that he was our lead designer. So he was focused on being a spokesperson. We didn't have a designer, so me, the spokesperson, the supposed spokesperson, started doing the design duties. And I think I did some things quite well, because when the company started working on Dying Light the following, which was an expansion pack to Dying Light, I was asked to be a lead designer on that project, which I was. We did this, the project was a success, so it was, to be honest, the best time of my life, of my personal life. So that's the experience that you will get from me. I worked on 2 projects, I spent in game dev industry 3 years, so whatever I say is based on that. And that's important because for me, everything that people say about the game industry, everything that they know about game industry comes from experience. It's not something they learned somewhere else. It's not how prepared they came to the game industry. It's about what they've learned while they were making games. So, toolbox of a resourceful designer, to come to the focus of this presentation. That's easy if I was a plumber. Then someone ask me, who are you? I'm a plumber. What's in your toolbox? That's easy. Wrench, screwdriver, hacksaw, chewing gum, because there's some leakage that you can just close with chewing gum, and maybe this beautiful plumber's cracked camo. But if I'm a game designer, then it's harder, because people ask me, who are you, game designer? They look at me strange. What's in your toolbox? What kind of tools do you use? And that's kind of hard to explain. So I want to explain what's in my toolbox. And actually, there's one thing in my toolbox that's also in the resourceful plumber toolbox. Do you have an idea what that might be? What do you think? Okay. So actually, you were the best one, because it's a chewing gum, as you will see in a minute. So that's me, a resourceful, I hope, designer, and that's my toolbox. So I have a rule book, I have a mind map app, I have my mom there, I have a Flipchart marker, sticky notes, chewing gum, bravo to you, and exercise list, and some equipment to do those exercises. And of course, a lot of other stuff, but I just want to focus on these few. So let's start with a rulebook. So rulebook came from my personal quest for something which I call a magic formula, like a golden set of rules for game design. I was stupid enough to think that there must be something like that for game design. You get a problem, and you get this set of rules. You apply those rules to this problem, and the problem is solved. Bang, like this, easy. If there is something like that for nuclear physics, I was thinking that there must be something like that for game design. But it seems that game design is more complex than nuclear physics, because for nuclear physics, you actually can get that book. There's a book which says nuclear physics, one-on-one, you read this, you understand everything. If there's a nuclear physics problem, you can solve this with this book. But with game design, it's not that easy. Why? Because game design is basically something like this. So you're strapped to a rocket, you're going somewhere, you don't know where, you have to smile because the whole team is looking at you, and it is scary, it will get crazy, and I was looking for something that would help me with this. So I started looking for the rulebook, and how this quest goes of mine, well, like this. So I'm somewhere on the road. I'm moving forward with trying to find those rules, but as you can see, it's still scary, and but at least the views are beautiful, so that's something. So what I did, I started creating my own rulebook, and I was looking everywhere, mostly on the internet, for things that could help me. And what I found out is actually I'm not the first one that came to this idea that there must be a golden set of rules for game design. And there are those two guys, Noah Falstein and Hal Borwood, who I'm sure my brother knows because Hal Borwood was very heavily involved in a classic Indiana Jones adventure game, which we loved as, well, he was a kid, I wasn't a kid to be honest, but I was more a teenager. But we loved this game, and those guys started doing the 400 project. And what it is, they started asking game designers if they have any rules like this that they could use. They could use in various situations, like rules of thumb for game design. So they started gathering those rules, and you can find the results at the Inspiracy.com. They have about 170-ish, if I remember correctly. There are a lot of them. You can go check it out and see what's there. That will be I think that might be quite interesting for you. Of course, there are other different rule sets, or other guys also tried to find look for those rules. So that was, for example, Warren Spector. He devised the Deus Ex rules of role-playing at the start of the first Deus Ex project. There is also, you can easily find it online as well, Sid Meier's 10 rules of game design. Also very interesting to read, and the cool thing about it is that it is very short, so it's easy to digest. But what I realized is that maybe there isn't this universal set of rules, but I think every designer should look for their own rules and actually write them down, keep them in their head, and be serious about it, because that will give you something that you can refer to if you have any problems, if you have any doubts. So that's not my actual rule book, but I just thought it might be cute to have this doggy here. The rules. I have some. I will tell you about some of them, less important, more important, some that I have just chosen for this presentation. So the first one is very obvious, and of course there are a lot of things that are obvious if you work in gaming industry, but sometimes the obvious things aren't that easy to do, aren't that easy to achieve. So the first one, and I believe is the most important rule for every game designer, is play your game every day. And of course, if you work on a small project, on a small team, it's quite easy to do. Basically, the only thing you do, you play your game and you iterate on it, and the next day you play your game and it gets better and better and better and better. But if you work on a company such as Techland, where the projects are huge, the company is huge, you have to take care of a lot of other things than playing your game. So you have to go to a lot of meetings, talk with a lot of people, and then the end of the day comes and you think, okay, I'm tired, I don't have time, maybe I will play my game tomorrow. And the next day the same thing happens, the next day the same thing happens. And then you realize that you haven't played your game for 2 weeks. So why this rule is important, you have to force yourself to play your game every day to really see what's there, because that's the only way to understand your game and be able to make it better. The other one, also very obvious, that's something actually that they teach at every design workshop in US, is that you have to file fast, file smart, file cheap. So what that means is if you have an idea, if it's on paper, it's as good on paper as it is bad on paper. You have to see it in the game. But to see it in the game, you have to prototype it very quickly to check if that idea is valid. And then if it's okay, if the first tests are okay, then you can move forward. Another one, also quite obvious, but maybe some people will discuss with this, is when in doubt, simplify. So there are a lot of times where there are designs that have a lot of options, are a lot of variations. Like the essential core of the design is very sound, but there are a lot of things that aren't precise enough, or there isn't enough ammunition behind. Let's put it this way: there's not enough ammunition behind those ideas, those more complex interactions or something. So when I come across something like this, I simplify it as much as I can. Another one, that's something that a lot of people will disagree with, is, for me, that's my design sensibility. I always act in players' favor. So if I have a decision to make, and one of the choices, one of the designs makes it more challenging for the player, and the other one rewards the player, I always choose, as a game designer, the option, the decision, the design that rewards the player. So for example, the new Zelda game, great game, everyone should play it, but there's this thing where When there is rain, it's very hard to climb. So it's almost impossible to climb. So that's not something that I would do in, and you could say, okay, that's very smart, that's very immersive, that makes the whole game feel grounded, because that's how reality works. When it's raining, it's slippery, so it's hard to climb. But that's not something what I would do. What I would do is, and that's something that we did in Dying Light, is that when it's raining and player has some kind of a weapon with electricity in it, then that weapon deals more damage. So that's something that rewards the player. Another example is, Dark Souls series. There's this idea in Dark Souls that when you die, you lose all of your experience, all of your souls, and you have to go back to get it. For me, that's something that they did because they wanted the player to keep playing, to continue playing after they die. So what I would do, if I was designer of that game, well, maybe not this game, but what I would do in this situation, if I would like to keep people playing after they died, is I would give a timed bonus for them that works only during the real time after your actual death. So for the next 30 minutes, you get some kind of a buff that you can use after your death. Another rule, some of those rules are very technical, like maybe not technical, but some rules are very easy to apply when I try actually to do stuff. So that's a rule that I stole from Sid Meier. So he says that when you try to balance your game and you're finding the right parameters for your game, for example, you see an enemy and that you think that enemy moves too slow. So don't increase his speed by 10%. Double the speed of the enemy. If he thinks he's moving too fast, then don't lower the speed by 10%. Cut it in half, and then that will give you a better understanding of what are your extremes. So then it will be easier for you to find the sweet spot. Some of the things have evolved over time. So, for example, when I started game design, when I started designing games, I was very much for symmetry. So I was this young designer that was thinking that if everything is symmetric, if on both sides of anything you get the same amount of things, then that's a good design. So, for example, in Dying Light we had 3 skill trees, and there were 25 skills in each tree. But like 3 months before the release of the game, we had to cut 2 of those skills for some reasons. So that gave us 3 skill trees, where there was 1 with 25 skills and 2 with 24 skills. So I basically hated it. I was treating this as a failure. It's not symmetric. Something is wrong there. But what it evolved into during my experience, during my time as a game developer, as a game designer, I started liking asymmetry. So now I say screw symmetry. If I was to do skill trees right now, I would say let's have 17 skills in one skill tree, 23 in the other one, and I don't know, 12 in the third one, because I think that makes things more interesting. And another one from my design sensibilities, don't reveal everything. So that's something that I try to do. If we have a game that has some complexities in it, we don't explain all of the secrets of the game. So, for example, the thing that I told you about with the rain and electrical weapons doing double damage, it's not explained nowhere in the game. So that's something that people have to discover by themselves. So that's my rule book. I advise everyone to have their own. Actually, if you want, I will show you my email address after the presentation, so I can send you my rulebook so you can see what's there. The next thing that I have in my toolbox is mind map app. And if you ask me which one I'm using, I will not tell you, and there's a reason for that, why I will not tell you this. But I suggest every game designer should use mind maps. If you're not using them, if you don't know what it is, it's a very simple complex. It's a way of making notes where you start with the topic that you want to make notes about in the center of the page of the screen, and then you keep adding things that are associated with this. Anything that comes to your mind. And after some time, you will end up with a huge page filled with words, with associations, with ideas that are connected to the main topic, main subject. And why mind maps rules? Because first of all, they mimic how our brain works, and because of that, they are able to open you up to new ideas. You will realize, and actually they have a proven effectiveness. There are a lot of studies that show that people using mind maps, they get better results. They work faster, they come up with better ideas. Look at online, there's a lot of those studies online. And above opening you up to new ideas, you also get to see everything in one place, everything with one glance. Of course, sometimes those mind maps are very huge, so it's kind of hard to see everything at once, but at least it's easier. I don't always do this. Oh, there's one more reason for it. Leonardo da Vinci used it. So if the best designer in the history of humankind used something like mind maps, then I think that proves that they are worth something. And there was also another guy this century who was using this. It's Tony Buzan. He's an Englishman who started telling everyone about the effectiveness of mind maps. So if you Google Tony Buzan and mind maps, you will also get something which is almost like 10 commandments of using mind maps. So he explains the rules of using that tool, that way of thinking, to make them as effective as possible. One thing that I do, which is against what Tony Buzan is saying, is I have this template that you have right here. I don't always use this, but sometimes I do. If I start design something, then I try to shoot first with ideas that are within those, let's say, domains. And why I am not telling you which mind map I'm using, it's very easy, because when I was trying to, I realized that it is a real tongue twister. So you will see it on the screen, and maybe if you want, you can try to repeat this. So that's like, mine is Xmind, and try to repeat this fast, and it's not that easy. So I will just show it on the screen. So Mind Map App is my second tool from my game designer toolbox. The next one is my mom, and of course I love my mom, and I love my brother as well. It's the last reference to my brother, I promise. And of course that's my mom, very beautiful mom, as you can see. What I do is there's this thing which I call a mom test. And that's something, I'm a lead designer right now. So there are quite often situations where designers come up to me and they start asking me questions, and they trying to explain their designs to me. And quite often I realize or I see that these designs are either too complicated, or they are having some problems explaining those designs. So what I tell them then is do a mom test. And mom test is something where you take a design, you think of how you want to present this to your mom, you ask your actual mom for some of her time, you explain the design for her, and then you ask her what she understood. And what that gives you is, first, when you try to prepare the presentation for your mom, when you're thinking how you want to present this to your mom, you will start simplifying things, and you will start thinking how you can actually present your design in a way which is the most effective way, the most resourceful way. And also when your mom tells you what she understood, then you will get kind of humble about your communication skills and about your design. You will realize very easily where the design is not as strong as it should be. So that's true. I actually do that, and there's one girl from Techland, which I'm not sure if she is in the audience, but what she did, she made her mom sign an NDA for our project so she can freely talk to her mom about everything. And that's a true story. I'm not making this up. And of course, this doesn't have to be a mom. This can be a dad, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, auntie, uncle, friend, if he signed an NDA. To be honest, if you are a game designer on a deserted island, then even a photo will do. And I found out recently that there is something in programming which is called rubber duck debugging, where the designers try to explain the code that they did, or they try to debug line by line to a rubber duck. So if you don't have your mom nearby, you can use the photo of your mom or even the rubber duck. And of course, remember, Mother's Day in Poland is in 3 days, so keep that in mind when you leave this room. So that was mom number 3 in my toolbox. And now Flipchart, marker, and sticky notes. So of course, it's a duty of every game designer to have pen and paper. You just got to have it. Or at least you need to have some note-making device. It doesn't have to be pen and paper. This can be your iPhone or Android phone, but you need to make notes. You need to have something to make notes everywhere and at every time, because good ideas, solutions to problems happen in the most unexpected places. But that's pen and paper, but Flipchart and marker is something that is used in, The light shines on me so much, sorry. Flipchart and marker is something that you are using when you try to explain something to your team. And actually what I realized what I'm doing, it wasn't very conscious, but I saw other designers at Techland doing this, and now I do this all the time. During every meeting where I try to explain something, I always use a Flipchart and a marker as a visual tool. Because, again, Provence to this, look them up on internet, there is something which is called information retention, and that's your ability to keep the information you was given. And they did this experiment when they took a group of people and they told them something. Like they gave them a piece of information, but they did it only with words. They just told them this. And there was another group of people where they conveyed the same information, but what they did, they also used some kind of a picture to explain the information. And after 3 days, they asked those groups of people what they remember, if they remember that information. And only 10% of the people that were told the information actually remembered this after 3 days. But from the group that was told the information and was shown something, some kind of a visual aid, 65% of those people remembered that information. So easy maths, it's 6.5 times better if you use a visual tool, visual aid, if you want to present some kind of information to people. And then you can take this even further if you want. And there's this great TED talk. Every time when I say it, I think of Kendrick Lamar for some reason. But TED talk, how you make a toast. And that TED talk advises everyone, and especially people that solve problems, to think in systems. And I think that actually people who try to solve problems should think in systems. And systems are nodes and links between those nodes and interactions between those nodes. So you can go see it. We don't have time for this and to explain this, but what they found out and what is explained in that TED Talk is that when you try to find a solution to a problem using pen and paper, it's okay. But when you try to do it using flipchart markers and sticky notes, where you can move the sticky notes however you see fit, then you will come up with better solutions. And if you try to solve a problem and you get the flipchart, a marker, sticky notes, and a group of people and try to solve this problem by working together, you get the best possible solution. So actually, I advise you to try it. If you have a design problem, you can try it. This might work for you, this may not. It all depends on the people you work with. But try to solve a problem in a way that's described in that TED Talk, how you make a toast. So we have what was there? Rule book, MAM, flipchart, marker, sticky notes, mind map app, and a chewing gum. So that's the joke part of the presentation. Chewing gum is needed because you want to have a fresh breath, and you want to have a fresh breath because you need to leave your desk and actually talk to people. It's the utmost responsibility of every game designer to not sit at their desk, to be available, to go to teams, to go to people. So I would like to excuse all of my Techland friends if they feel that I don't visit them as often as I should. I will get better, I promise, because I know that's important. Why it's important? Because design doc is only a first step. And to be honest, I don't remember too many situations where when whatever was in the design doc happened to be in the game in the same exact shape and size and form. Then the other brutal thing is that no one reads design docs. Again, excuse to all my Techland friends who actually read my docs, but basically no one reads them. You can assume that they weren't read. And the next thing, of course, which I think you've heard a lot of times at these Digital Dragons, is that everyone can have an awesome idea. I saw a presentation from BioWare yesterday where they were saying the same thing. Everyone can have an awesome idea, that's obvious, but also everyone can see a problem within your design that you didn't think of, and everyone can have questions to your design that you didn't think of. So chewing gum is important for that reason. And the last thing that I keep in my toolbox is the exercise list. And that's something that I do when I try to keep myself creative, and when I try to take my mind off the project so I can work on something else, so I can go back to the project with bigger focus and more creativity. So that's exercises. And there are a lot of exercises. You can come up with whatever exercise that you want. Mine's ones that I use quite often is, first of all, it's something which I call inspiration feature, because stealing from others wouldn't be as interesting. Basically, what happens is that after every movie, every book, every other game I played, I try to think if there's anything that inspires me to come up with a feature for a game. So, for example, Fast and Furious recently, and I came up with a new idea for a new enemy for our game. Right now I'm reading a book about Jesus, so maybe there will be some skills in the new game that will get inspired by this. Don't laugh, it's very serious matter. But there are a lot of exercises like this, and there are some that really require your brain to work very hard. So one of those is you choose a topic, let's say a new enemy for your game, and you have to come up with a large number of ideas for that one topic. So let's say 101 idea. That's very hard. After the 10th or the 20th, you will feel very exhausted, but that actually makes your brain be more, that's an endurance test. That gives your brain a better condition or a strength to come up with ideas, to be creative constantly. Another one that I did, I'm not using this recently, but there was a time at Techland when we were finishing Dying Light and we were thinking about new projects. I was designing or coming up with an idea for a new game each week. So each week on Monday, I was thinking, okay, it's a new week, I have to come up with a new idea for a new game. And I actually did that. And after the end of the week, I had some kind of idea. Sometimes it was very simple, like 2 or 3 sentences. Sometimes there were paragraphs explaining the actual gameplay. Oh, screw it. I promised you no more references to my brother, but there's the last one, really, please. So classic game remake, that's something that I did a couple of times with my brother. We played the same games. I was the teenager, he was the kid who was sitting beside me and looking at me playing, and then he started playing the games by himself. And recently when we meet, we try to come up with remakes for classic video games that we remember from these times. But actually the best game design exercise that I have ever participated in is this idea that you should create a paper or analog version of a video game. That's something that there's this game design workshop at GDC each year, and each year for I think 13 or 14 years they do this. They get a group of people like this in a room. They split them in groups of 6 to 8 people. They come up with a list of actual video games like Katamari Damacy, World of Tanks, Warcraft, Overwatch, whatever, Don't Starve. And they ask those groups to create a paper analog version of those games. So what they tell you is, first think of the core feeling, the most essential feeling that this game produces in you. And then try to understand, try to name what's the core challenge in that game that you are trying to recreate as a paper game. And they also suggest, they also want to force you to use the file fast, file cheap, file smart formula. So they say, okay, so you have an idea, test this formula, like play the game that you have in your mind, play this idea with your team, with your group, and see if that's good. And if it's not, then try to think how you could correct it. And for this they give you, and that's the equipment at the top of the slide. So for this they give you paper, pen, sticky notes, a lot of poker tokens, a lot of dice, a lot of pawns, foam shapes. That's very interesting, very important, because I was doing a Katamari Damacy game. And what we did, we throw all of those foam shapes on the table, and the goal of the player was to pick those foam shapes from the table, and there were different foam shapes, and under those numbers there was an explaining which type of foam shape you're supposed to be picking up at any given moment. So it was very frantic, very Katamari Damacy, and I was really proud of this. And actually, if you're having something like game design jams in your company or in your studio or in the group of people that you make your game with, try to do this because it's great fun, and actually this can help you stay creative. And of course, walk a lot. The game designers need to walk. Every time when you come up across a problem that you don't know how to solve, you're staring at the screen of your PC, of your computer, you don't know how to solve this, leave this, go for a walk, 10, 15 minutes, I guarantee you will be closer to finding a solution. Maybe you will even find it, because that's how our mind works. You need to put oxygen to your brain, you need to keep your muscles moving, so your whole body needs to work for your brain to work in the most optimal way. And that's it. Of course, that's not everything that I have in my toolbox, but these are the things that I wanted to share with you. So takeaways from this: game designers have a lot of responsibility, and because of that, they need to be resourceful. If they want to be resourceful, they need to use everything that's around them, and they need to create their own toolbox, their own set of tools that they will be able to use, tools, techniques, methods, whatever, that will allow them to deliver on whatever it is that they need to deliver on. Maybe there isn't an universal tool set like that, but as I said, each game designer should have their own set of tools. And of course, when you have them, share your own personal rules, tools with everybody, because that means you are a good person, and you need to be a good person if you want to work in game dev industry. And of course, the last thing, once again, Mother's Day is in 3 days, so please don't forget about this when you leave this audience. Thank you very much. And of course, if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
And I do have a mic, so it's going to be easier. Sorry. Any questions? Okay, 1, 2.
Now the hard part begins.
Are you using some tools to make 3D prototypes in your toolbox, or do you think this is an overkill? First, when you mentioned about a chewing gum, I thought about joining pieces of paper with it.
Of course, we can do this, right? If you want to make a prototype, then you can do this. But if you ask me if I'm making 3D prototypes can you see the screen, because I want to show something. If you ask me if I'm making 3D prototypes in actual, in editor, then not, because I'm not that good at drawing. And actually, I forgot to mention this. So I'm telling you, use visual tools. But the thing is, I'm not that good at drawing. So as you can see, there are 3 dogs. And 2 of those were drawn by my colleagues from Techland, my colleague designers. And 1 was drawn by me. And as you can see, it's the cat dog caterpillar on the top of the screen. So I'm not good at it at all, but still I use it, and thankfully I'm able to convey some kind of information using the visual aids, visual tools.
I noticed that in your toolbox you don't have a spreadsheet.
So yeah, I have it. Yeah, of course I have it. It's here. It's a lot of other stuff. If you want to, game designers know this. Spreadsheet. What's the word for it? Editor, text editor, computer, of course, Notepad++. These are the things that we use every day. But I wanted to give it a different spin, because I think talking about spreadsheets wouldn't be as interesting for you. But of course, you need to use spreadsheets, and there are a lot of techniques which allow you to use spreadsheets in a more effective way, and how you can turn them into something you can communicate your ideas better. But you can also look for this online, or maybe we can have a presentation about this next year at Digital Dragons.
Thanks.
We had a little question right there, yes. Okay.
Can you show your email again?
Yeah, of course. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, Tymon.smektała@techland.pl.
I think we have one question also in the back right here. Someone? No? Okay.
I'll take it.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I'm wondering, when you look back, do you think that your practice, because I assume you practice what you preach, so for example, this mind exercises, do you see that they improve your efficiency as a designer?
Yeah. So that's the whole idea of this talk. Is these are the things that I use because I believe they make they make me job more effectively. And what that means is that the easiest way they help me is I have a decision to make. So I can fall back to these rules that I shown you to choose the thing the rule that I think will work best. So I give a quicker answers to teams, and then the whole project, the whole work moves faster.
I was actually referring to the mind exercise list that you had.
Of course.
So your ability to generate ideas by just
So I noticed this that when I joined Techland, I had this fear that maybe as a game designer I will not have as many ideas. And actually I was surrounded by designers that I think had better ideas than me and more ideas than me. And I started looking for means, for ways to improve myself as a game designer, especially in terms of creativity. And actually doing those things, I think they helped me. I'm not sure if it really is a brain muscle that got better. Maybe they just opened me to new ways of thinking. But actually that helps. And one of I think the most beneficial exercises on that list, because do a paper version of a video game is fun. It teaches you how to work in a group. But for me personally, the most beneficial one is the one come up with a lot of ideas for one topic, because you really have to push yourself hard. You really need to squeeze those ideas from you, and you will notice, I hope you'll notice, because I did, that after some time you get better at this. So at the start of this, I came up with a topic, let's say new enemies, so I had 10 of those. But then 3 months later, I was having problems at 30 and then at 50. So actually, for me, it really worked. You need to test it. As I said, these are personal rules, personal experiences, but I want to share it because I believe they work.
Thanks.
So using that time, I would like to tell you that we have a very tasty cold beer at Techland booth, which is one floor below. So please go visit us.
Best booth.
What tools do you use to balance game?
What tools? Basically the game, and of course spreadsheets. So I do my calculations in spreadsheet, but then I look at the game, and to be honest, most of the actual the finding the fun in the speed of enemies, how quickly they turn, how much damage they give. These are the things that I get from playing the game and from using the rule. Actually, I really do use that rule by Sid Meier, that I first try to double the number, then maybe cut it in half and find the sweet spot. And that works for me.
My question is, when are you going to record new rap album?
That's the hardest one. I don't know. Sorry. There are some talks about it, but the talks are continuing for 10 years now. My last one was in 2007, so... But I still keep the faith, so maybe there's something coming. I know there are a lot of people that would like to hear that, so I'm thinking that I should give something just for them, just so they can enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.